Good evening. My name is Jana Mutra. I'm the curator of live programs here at Nottingham Contemporary. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the last chapter of the Adventure Playground, Architectures of Contemporary Play, with Gabriela Burkhalter, on her decade-long research and project entitled The Playground Project. Together, today, we will look into how children can be a part of city through the lens of 5 film clips produced in various localities. The films depict how children negotiate, appropriate, and master their environment, and how through struggles, perseverance, and collaboration, they are able to build personal resilience, and autonomy. In terms of running order today, Gabriela will first present her project for 30 to 40 minutes, and then we are going to show the aforementioned films as prompts to initiate an informal and intimate conversation. So if you would like to come towards the kind of beginning of rack seating to join in the conversations, you're more than welcome to do so. Whilst you will be able to ask any questions you might have then, please wait for the microphone to be given to you by one of our event assistants before you pose your questions. For those of you who are with us for the first time, as Nottingham Contemporary, we often invite artists, thinkers, and scholars to collaborate with us on opening up our curatorial research and programs and artistic propositions within our current exhibitions. These interventions and subversions of dominant modes of thought allow us to dwell on complex questions and eventually new methodologies for rewriting the artistic canon and the dominant historiographies and for making critical thought public. Before introducing our guests, I would like to share a brief housekeeping note. Our live programs open up different interventions and propositions, as I have mentioned, on our current research strand, Emergency and Emergence, a multi-platform program that looks into transdisciplinary, sensorial, and speculative practices of radical sense-making and wayfinding, to think about how we can move from crisis to renewal, from emergency to emergence. This event is also an extension of our current series, The Adventure Playground, Architectures of Contemporary Play, of explanatory talks and propositions that investigate processes of play and imagination and their role in built environments and design spaces of playgrounds. Bringing forward the architectural and political history of playgrounds as dedicated spaces for children across contemporary cities and centers on the idea of world making. I'd like to take this opportunity to show our gratitude to the University of Nottingham, Nottingham Trent University, and Paul Mellon Center for generously and graciously supporting today's event, as well as acknowledging my colleagues, Philippa Douglas, Shannon Charles Ward, Catherine Masters, Craig Parr, Ola Taiwo, and Jordan for making this event possible. Although we will keep an informal atmosphere throughout the evening, our talks, performances, and screenings seek to create challenging environments where open-mindedness and respect for each other's approaches and perspectives can foster growth. So please be mindful and respectful of each other's opinions. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our today's guest. A trained political scientist and urban planner based in Basel, Switzerland, Gabriela Burkhalter was a guest creator of Architecture for Kinder, Zurich's Spielplätze, Architectures for Children, Zurich's Playground at GTA exhibitions, which took place from November 6th to December 10th in 2014. Before that, she created the Playground Project for the 2013 Carnegie International Carnegie Museum of Arts in Pittsburgh. Since 2008, she has documented the history of playgrounds on www.architectureforkinder.ch, and her articles and reviews have appeared in magazines and catalogs, and you can still kind of look at the website and then see kind of new additional information and new press clips and so on and so forth, if you would like to kind of see the contemporary takes on it as well. An advisor to public agencies for the renovation of historic playgrounds, she is also an activist engaged in the revitalization of community spaces. So without further ado, Gabriela, I'll let you deliberate. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and being with us this evening.
Thank you, Canan and Nottingham Contemporary, for having me here this evening. So, as you introduced me, I will give a lecture in 3 parts. You forgot one part. I added spontaneously. So I will first trace the development of the playground project. Then I want to situate the work of Assemble that you can see in the exhibition upstairs. So their approach to play, I want to situate it in the history of playgrounds or see where it's come from. And finally, what I call the workshop, where I hope that we will have a nice discussion. I will show 5 film clips with the idea to discuss with you autonomous play in the city. How is it possible or not? So, the Playground Project, an exhibition in progress. Here I want to draw the stages of the Playground Project. That's a traveling exhibition on the history of playgrounds, and at the same time, it's a stage for free play. As an urban planner, I always was interested in how to build and how to activate public space. That's how I came to read this book by Susan Solomon, an American art and architecture historian. The book is from 2006. In there, she gives a comprehensive overview on the history of the modern playground. That's about between 1930s and 1980. So I was completely fascinated to discover this forgotten space, the playground. And because playgrounds are not preserved as part of the urban and social history of the city, so they are not considered as an urban heritage, they constantly disappear and are replaced. That's the reason why we are not aware of playground designs of the past decades. So my interest was sharpened by the discovery of a series of very well-designed books, and they present the topic in a very unconventional and even artistic way. For example, Play and Interplay by the landscape architect Anne Paul Friedberg from New York from 1970, or Playground and Recreation Center, here in a German edition, a book from 1959. And there are several more books in this style from these years. So the will to share the experience of building playground made a very strong impression on me. So that not only to build playgrounds, but also to share it in publications seemed to be quite exceptional to me. In a second step, about in 2008, I started to build the website Architektur für Kinder, Architecture for Children, as a way to structure my research, to share it with others, and to deepen my understanding of the playground as a part of the social and urban history. I became aware that by taking the viewpoint of the playground, I gained a particular insight into the realities of the cities. I better understood things like the segregated urbanism in the US, or the rise of participation in planning, or the roots of urban problems in France. So the playground functions like a focal glass on the society and the city. The discovery of some rare vintage play sculpture in my hometown Basel in Switzerland was another important step in my research. For example, this schoolyard with its concrete play landscape by Swiss artist Michael Grossert, that school art is still in function today. It has been renovated in 2009, even if it doesn't fit to current safety standards. Or this modular play sculpture designed by Michael Grossert as well. And then when I had the chance to meet the artist, we organized a small show in an off space in Basel, where we presented models, play modules, photographs, and film. The project then made a big step in advance when my husband, Daniel Baumann, was appointed as a curator of the 2013 Carnegie International, taking place every 5 years at the Museum of Art in Pittsburgh, that you can see here, with the sculpture by Richard Serra. The idea to build a playground in front of the museum was born with the intention to have a better connection between the museum and the city of Pittsburgh. That's how the so-called Lossy Worm, a Swiss design from 1972, was shipped to Pittsburgh and built in front of the museum. That's how it looked when it was built up. A good coincidence made it possible to organize a small show on the history of the modern playground at the architecture center that was part of this museum and as a part of the 2013 Carnegie International. We decided to keep the spirit of research, not only by the title, that was sort of the working title that became the definitive title, but also by opting for a casual and DIY presentation with these plywood boards, where we applied the images with this tuck tape. And the playground project also served as an inspiration for the annual summer camps for children and teenagers at the Carnegie Museum. To us, the playground project at the Heinz Architecture Center in Pittsburgh functioned as a test version, since we understood that there was much more material to go much bigger. And we hoped to find a location or a venue in a museum in Switzerland after our return, or after we left the US. First, I received an invitation to realize an exhibition at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich in 2014. And I was able to draw on the rich resources of the archives of this institute, the Architectural Institute. And so I decided to focus this exhibition on the playgrounds of Zurich, on landscape architects and architects who designed playgrounds mostly in the 1960s. So this is an exhibition view with a film projected on the windows, or we also reused a stage that students had built for a previous project. We displayed a lot of documents from the archives. And so this was this exhibition in this academic context. Then Daniel, my husband, was appointed as the new director of the Kunsthalle Zurich. So that gave us the great opportunity to stage the playground project on a large scale in 2016. So I added new finds, new documents, films, and we also included a series of real playgrounds. Because our curatorial concept was twofold. We wanted to test out the possibilities to address children as an audience without locking them up in separate children workshops. For instance, we directly built in the children workshop into one gallery. And secondly, to build an exhibition with ambitious content and playful entertainment, like these ropes hanging from the ceiling that were also appreciated by adults. I'm sorry that I don't have images with people in it, but that's always a little bit of a problem. We didn't have an educational intention for the children, so we didn't expect them to learn something. The only intention was to have a space for free play. And we again opted for a DIY approach by using spaces and material from previous exhibitions. Like here in the gallery dedicated to the adventure playground, we reused an existing space, or we demounted it and just let the cardboards where they are and used it to display the material on adventure playgrounds. We programmed the exhibition for the winter-spring term, and we were overwhelmed by families, but also grandparents came with their grandchildren, students, school classes, planners, and architects. The exhibition then traveled to other venues, to Baltic in Newcastle, to Ireland, to Russia. Here an image from Gorky Park with the advertisement or the poster for the exhibition at the Garage Museum of Contemporary Art. Here an exhibition view. So this exhibition design was completely taken in charge by the team of Garage. And they invested a lot of work to rebuild playgrounds from historic plans that I had from a playground, from a designer collective. In Venice, in an off space near the Giardini, during the Architecture Biennial, we organized a local version together with curators and artists from Venice. It included just two positions from the Playground project, the German group Kex and the Italian architect Riccardo D'Alisi. So we chose just two positions that were in relation with Venice or with Italy. I will come back to these positions later. And so they proposed to print the material on this sort of fabric and to build these platforms in this semi-public garden. That's when you walk to the Giardinis from the Via Garibaldi. And they also organized summer play activities for children that you can see here. So it was very completely taken in charge by them, the whole design. That's also the way we work, that we always want to get in touch with local people and also add new finds for every exhibition, local finds, beside the so-called standard content of the exhibition. The project also had two venues in Germany, at Bundeskunsthalle Bonn. Here I included play sculptures in polyester by German designer Günter Belzig, also from the beginning of the 1970s. They were also playable for children. And And here this tribune by Belzig where people could sit on and browse through books. And in the background, again, the Lossywurm. So this play sculpture is really like the heart of the exhibition, and it is a must be. So there can be another play sculpture, like for instance in Moscow, but there must be a play sculpture. That is really a very important condition of the exhibition. When we get a request from a museum, that's always what our first answers, let's say. Then the second venue in Germany was the Deutsches Architekturmuseum. So that was for the first time that I moved in the context of architecture. Before it was always art. Even if it's probably rather a subject or a topic of architecture or urban planning. But I guess that art is just, or museums of art are just more open to a large range of topics. At the beginning, people would rather a bit laugh on me when I would tell that I would do research on playgrounds. So they wouldn't taken it very serious. Here at the German Architecture Museum, again we have these polyester sculptures. We often work with colors because we have always 4 sections to structure the history, because you can't do so much a timeline because everything happened a bit at the same time. And here for the first time we also included contemporary positions by a Mexican architect who designs play spaces for public housing estates in Mexico City. Again, the Lossywurm. I have to say that it's really like a safe value. It's always very well received by children and also teenagers. And it gives really a very nice atmosphere. Then the last venue in the spring of this year was in the city of Lund in South Sweden. I was very pleased to be invited to Sweden because Scandinavia is such an important inspiration for the playground history or for the renewal of the playground. Here again, a local position by Swedish sculptor Axel Nordell in the courtyard of the museum. Then here again, we displayed all the material and added some new sculptures by Swedish artists. So we always print these large images, so from the files, and we always adapt it to the space, so they can be larger or smaller depending on how big the space is. We also have some original material from a French design group. So that's how it evolved in this very nice museum in Lund. Here again, the Lossywurm in the entrance hall of the museum. And yeah, it was nice to hear, or I was very pleased to hear that children came by after school to play on the Lossywurm. They came without their parents and just had some play dates at the museum. Yeah, so that's the first part of this itinerary of the playground project. I also have a catalog. I brought it here. I will leave it for you for your library. So this is the second edition of the catalog. I'm currently working for the third edition with new contents. I just now thought that Assemble is such an important collective who thought of bringing play back to the city. And I mean, it was such a great honor for them to receive the Turner Prize and also to give play a more visibility and more importance. So that's, for this reason, I thought that I would like to contextualize a little bit where their ideas are coming from, or what I think they are coming from. I didn't talk to them, so. So they are interested in how to connect children to the environment and how to make children part of the society, how to provide space for free play in the city. In this interest for participation and perception of the environment, I see a clear proximity to Colin Ward that your program also dedicated one talk to Colin Ward, because he's very important for the UK, but also beyond, but also a proximity to other collectives from the 1970s. So I would just talk about some of these collectives, like some examples. And why are the 70s so important? So in the 1970s, in the aftermath of 1968, so these events that happened then, critiques came up denouncing the lack of play opportunities and of places where children could manipulate their environment and where they could actively be, or where they could have a real impact and an output. And as in other areas of society, more participation was demanded. So groups of artists, citizens, and educators set up multiple forms of self-organized play spaces, workshops, and play activities, so in the 1970s. And educators discovered the power of the environment in general and the urban environment specifically. And the trust in the institutions, such as the school, and in play equipment, so like standardized fixed play equipment faded, because these people understood that the city offered enough learning experience and possibility of interaction. So in England, Colin Ward, here his most important books of the many he has written, The Child in the City. So Colin Ward was an important figure who saw children as an integral part of the society and of the city. In 1971, he was employed as an education officer for the Town and Country Planning Association, the TCPA. And this association was formed to improve town and country planning in the UK and also to enable participation. An important goal was to empower people, and especially children, to become experts in their environment. So that is also an important moment in the 70s, this idea of empowerment, that you don't have specialists anymore, that you tell what to do, but you are human. French is coming in. You are yourself able to judge about your environment, your neighborhood, or whatever. And Ward also provided material and guidance for teachers and invited them to look at the city to explore and understand it. So the point of his initiative was to get children out of the school and bring them into the communities to talk to local people, explore the neighborhood, and understand how buildings, streets, landscape, and social life interact. So later in the workshop section, I will present one of the films that Colin Ward advertised in his main communication magazine, the BEE, Bulletin of Environmental Education. So that was a magazine with material for teachers of how to work with children. And he was the co-editor of this magazine from 71 to 79. So in this same spirit of assemble, of participation and perception, I see the Italian architect and professor Riccardo D'Alisi. I will also present a film from him. And he held the design studios with his students outside. So instead of staying at the campus at the university, he went in this poor neighborhood, in this low-income neighborhood in Naples. And the students built beside the children. And with the idea to offer them a space of freedom and of self-empowerment. So it is special that D'Alisi didn't want to educate children, but he wanted just to offer a free space. So for this, he's really exceptional. I didn't find another experience or experiment where there were no intention to educate children. Here, another initiative from the 1970s, the collective KEX from Germany. KEX stands for Art, Education, Cybernetic, and Sociology. And the group formed in the context of the School of Fine Arts in Munich in 1968. And they criticized that the art education was only focused on reproducing, but didn't foster a self-judgment of the children. So they wanted to provide an aesthetic education for children. So they had a clear educational intention compared to D'Alisi. And they started to organize art actions with children and teenagers in the context of the schools. And what you can see here is that the body is very important. So how children would perceive their body in the environment. They were invited to the 1970 Venice Biennial, where they turned parts of the Giardini Park into a space where children could experiment with simple materials such as paint, paper, wood, and transparencies. That was another important ingredient of their work, that they would always bring tons of materials to places. Like here, so later on they would move from art action to play activities in housing estates around Munich. Here they would just bring a lot of material like paper and can't say it in English. Like this white block, polystyrene, yeah. And it would be very chaotic. We will also see that on a film later. They ran a play bus, and so they offered mobile play activities. And they also wanted to give a place for free play, but also for a place for autonomous learning. So they also had some of educational background, but still it was a very chaotic activity. So recently I started to do research on the socialist context in the GDR. And I was very surprised to see that even there, but you expect that all the leisure activities of children and teenagers are organized by the state. Even there were some adults who would organize play activities in the housing estates and to allow children to have this space for creativity. So yeah, that's what I think that are like the inspirations for the work of Assemble. And when we look at the context of today, it's very different. I mean, we cannot return to this sort of very free spaces. Today we live in a risk-averse society. Play, and especially unsupervised play, doesn't have a big priority for parents. But more and more people are getting aware of how important free play is. And they have engaged to make play and playgrounds relevant again, such as Assemble. So today we have, on the one side, we have classical playgrounds with mass-produced play equipments. And on the other hand, but I mean it's not an equilibrium, it's a small part of groups, people and associations who offer play activities, adventure playgrounds, play bus and things like that. So you know that also in the UK, the adventure playground is very heavily under pressure because of funding. But this is an important part of this free play requirement. So then I would move on to the third part. So for this part, I have chosen 5 films. One, the oldest one, it's a very short one, plays in 1948, and the others are all from the 70s. And I want to use these films to engage you in a discussion about children and their relationship to the environment, questions about autonomy, freedom, safety, question about locking up children out of public space for the sake of safety. And I want also to question the role of adults in these films. So maybe if you could just, I hope that we can also take your experience of maybe you work with children or whatever, or you are a parent, to discuss these questions. I think that adults always want the good and even the best for their children, and therefore they control them more and more. So it's like a movement going in 2 directions. So that's the clips from In the City by American photographer Helen Levitt, a film from '48 with city, but I think it should, with scenes in New York City with children playing very widely. The children are totally autonomous and don't let the adults tell them anything. Children are sometimes superior to adults. And the play has at times a destructive character, and then it's again imaginative. Then the second excerpt is from Dalisi, what I told you before, that this architecture professor who went to this Rione Traiano in Naples. During 4 years, he went there with the students, and they were just trying to build these structures. And the children would play or build with them. So there was no program, no intention. So it was quite chaotic, and these children often they would not attend school anymore. So it was really also a difficult situation. And these people also went to the what we call in German the Schmerzgrenze, the limit of the what you can when it's too much or not, it's really on the limit. Because this neighborhood was so unstructured, there was no landscaping, there was really no play opportunities. And Dalisi later, he would become a designer, and he was always, what he was most inspired was to see the children being creative without having any background of artwork, or he was just enthusiastic to see that it came out of nothing almost. And also what is special, that they were on eye level, so there was no, the students and the children and the professor were all on the same level. There was no superiority of knowledge or whatever. And he would write a diary, Dalisi, and he would also make a series in the renowned magazine Gasabella in Italy, where he would talk about this space for creativity and to work with poor material, he called them, like this scrap wood, paper, and things like that. So here it's interesting also to see the position of the adults. I think for this one it's also interesting to have this this idea of self-empowerment, that the children get confidence in what they are doing. So there is no right and no wrong. Then the next film is from this group Kex that I was talking about. So it started that the children have only these very boring standard playgrounds. So I will skip this because it's very boring. They only have these sand pits and they are bored. They are quite aggressive. And then they do this Spielaktion at this playground. And they also link it to political claim to say that there are not enough playgrounds. And they bring this type of material like these tires. And then later they would, and also these boxes. And it's very chaotic. There is no direction given by. There are people present from this group. They are like educators, but they are often young people, and they are present, but they do not give a direction of play. And later there would tracks would come and would dig a big hole into the playground, and then this would be like an initiation to further play. And I mean, what is also interesting here that often the boys have a very active role when it's this wild form of play. That's often, I mean, here you have the girls, but often the girls, they have clothes that are really not made for play. Here you have these tracks who comes. I mean, today we would be already shocked to have it with children beside, and then and so this group, they would split off in several groups, doing several activities in Munich, and they are still this form of play is still present in Munich. So then it would be financed by the city of Munich, by the Agency for Youth. And it's still today, so they still have huge play activities. For instance, in the summer, they do like a play city. And it's really, it's nice to see that it's still there. It got more civilized, though. So yeah, you see that the children are very much excited to here you have this whole that's again this. What is also quite special that they would really very well document all what they did. That's why we have this type of films. Okay. So I will go to the next film. So that's in relation with the work of Colin Ward. It's like a very political story because it's in this Islington in London where mothers would request an adventure playground on a vacant lot, and they would fight against the council to get it.
Everyone behind a door.
Some of the children get swore at by the people in the flat. Don't you think you call me dirty? You'll get
So
stuck
you
in
see the
big
conflict
mirror.
with the adults.
You go home. Get your hair cut. Go on, get home. Get your hair cut. And a flower.
Because you ain't got nowhere to play. I ain't got nowhere to play. We play football out here.
Right.
We're down the Sphinx, and then all the old bags open the window.
We can't play football, can you see? Because it's either the parents coming or it's the caretaker.
No, but in the Sphinx, if we play near or go near a car, we get told we just move near a car, right? And they'll go, get.
Then the mothers would organize a
the
walk to
plan
this
seemed nonsense.
vacant lot.
That they could understand, but why a large car park? And anyway, the contractors wouldn't need the whole site immediately, so why shouldn't the children have a corner of it for the next 6 weeks? Their patience had run out. They were going to make this site theirs, whatever the council said.
I'm not going in. Oh, yes, you are. I'm not. I'm in enough stuff.
And we've been up here.
Be careful, Chris.
When it comes to working really hard, there's all the difference in the world between a place that's provided for you and a place you make yourself. Next morning, while the children were at school, some of the mothers met on the site to discuss what next needed to be done. Unexpectedly, two well-dressed gentlemen appeared. They were officials from the council, sent to find out what on earth was going on.
What is going to happen? I mean, we are intending to take this piece of ground ourselves. Other than what?
You're trespassing for a start.
Yes, well, we realise
understand that.
we know that we're trespassing.
Well, come 7 days' time, they will really set to demolish this. So there's no place for children.
We are going to do our utmost to see that you don't develop that piece of ground down there. We need that for our children. Why can't we have it for our children?
The workmen left those holes there. They left the holes there with water in them that one of the children could have fell in and drowned. We have to come in and fill this in to make sure our children don't die.
He's not giving us the direct answer why we cannot have the ground for our children.
Because it has been let to a demolition contractor who's preparing to demolish it.
No, just a minute. We had a child die because Islington Borough Council wouldn't pull the asbestos roofing there.
Oh, wow.
And
Yes,
no,
we
it's
did.
not.
You never put the fencing up when we asked. When we said that we were going to take this ground over as an adventure playground, you moved in with your bulldozer and started demolishing it. Our children have to cross main roads and get killed when there's a piece of ground that is available there. There is a piece of ground. But that's only for cars, isn't it? That's only for motor cars. There is a piece of ground available. Don't say it isn't, because we've seen the plan.
You've seen the plan?
Yes, we have seen
It's a council and a parking lot.
We've taken
alterations for the plans. Why should there be parking space for 90 cars when there can't be a small area cut off for the children? Why don't you answer the questions that you're given?
These are not my...
You're just avoiding them all the
Oh, yes,
time.
I'm afraid I am. This is not my question.
No, but well, you should give us a direct answer.
No.
It wasn't going to be
The police inspector in charge of the local station was the next to appear. The mothers, expecting trouble, had phoned the inspector earlier and got him on their side.
This is the trouble. You see, you get onto one department to talk to you, and they say, excuse me, I'd like you to...
Hello, darling.
How are you? I'm very well, thank you, Mr. Cleaning. Mr.
Yeah.
Kershaw is the chairman, so I'll go you speak. Yes.
Oh, right. Well, now, look, you telephoned me this morning.
Yes.
I told you what I was doing, and I told you I'd come and see you.
Yes, sir.
This site is being cleared by the demolition people. And until it's cleared, nobody will give any decision. So I have to ask you all to leave, you know. All right? So if you don't mind, and then what you discuss with me on the telephone, I'll come and see you about, and we'll...
So what's nice here is that they really they engage in this quest for play opportunities. That's also this thing of self-empowerment and activism that is coming from everybody. It's not from politics, or it's really coming from the people. So the last excerpt is from a Swedish collective that's called Aktion Samtal, and just let you see.
Det är ingen idé att satsa på den äldre generationen längre. Man måste ödsla alla sina krafter på de som ännu är ofördärvade och oindoktrinerade. Nämligen...
Maybe I have to say, so this group has formed in 68 in a very loose form. They started to organize, to engage children in the design of urban space in Stockholm. So they would take over like a courtyard and make a guerrilla play space, like a very spontaneous action. And it was in a larger idea to criticize that the city would become very dedicated to cars and no life quality and no space for children. But it would be a very peaceful action, so it would not be no confrontation or no violence, but it would be very to engage in dialogue. That's why they call them action dialogue. And then they would, so it would be very spontaneous, but then they would have the idea that a bigger action would be needed, and they asked the director of the Moderna Museum if they could not have a play space there or an activity, and he agreed, and that's how this very famous exhibition Modellen came to exist, where this Museum for Contemporary Art in Stockholm was turned into an adventure playground during 3 months or 2 months, and it really became the synonym for a new type of exhibition where the audience would really be part, but for them it was really, the children were like an unspoiled group of people, so they would be like the model for a new society. The way they play, the way they behave, or they socialize, that would be like the model for the new society. That's why it was called Model for a New Society. That was the title of the exhibition. And here you see some views of this exhibition, but later on you would also see how they would do these urban actions.
Barnen.
Louise Mosken har jag här framför mig. Du är en av deltagarna i en annan aktion här i lekplats. Ja. När börjar ni här då?
Vi börjar här ungefär klockan 6 på morgonen. Så kom vi hit med en lastbil och på någon minut så fanns alla saker på platsen och alla började bygga med en gång.
Ja, vad är det meningen att det här ska bli då?
Ja, vi vill göra en lekplats där barnen kan leka tillsammans, inte bara en och en. Att de ska lära sig att samarbeta, och därför försöker vi föra fram kollektiva lekredskap.
Hur har ni fått ihop materialet?
Det har vi försökt tigga ihop överallt. Och det vi inte har tiggt ihop, det har vi fått satsa ur egen kassa.
Det är väldigt underligt i det här landet att det ska behövas aktioner av det här slaget som går utanför de parlamentariska institutionerna. Men det är väl så att den enskilda människan har väl fått lite för lite att säga, utan det styrs ju av politikerna.
Jag vet inte om det är en rädsla för varje förändring, varje försök till förändring av ett samhälle. Att man då omedelbart ser det som en... Man kallar det för vänsterradikalt och sådär. Det gäller ju alla försök att analysera bristerna i samhället. Så fort man säger att det är en brist, då är man vänsterradikal. Det tycker jag är ett väldigt konstigt sätt.
These were activists from this group. So maybe
Hallå,
we are
jag Wislander.
Hejsan, det är Mats Eriksson Brunér här. Hej.
Ja, hej. Alltså det fanns en sån potential av människor som ville göra någonting. Alltså det var så många som kände att vad fara och är det här liksom. Och myndigheterna var fortfarande gamla myndighetssverige som var oerhört reaktionärt, kan man väl säga, på ett sätt i all sin.
Okay, so I muted the sound, and so because we lost some time with our technology problems. Yes, here again you have this activity coming from the bottom, and not waiting that politicians would bring solutions. That's this self-organized aspect also. So maybe we, if you have questions or if you have remarks, or what these examples do bring in motion in you, or connected to your experience, please do not hesitate to.
It's really interesting, and I was just thinking, in Britain after the Second World War there was a lot of reconstruction, and I can remember living on an old, well, it was a council estate, and we didn't have a park, and we got a petition, and we walked miles, got hundreds of signatures, and there's a little park now, sort of 60 years on, that we got through a petition, but it was, one of the things I've noticed is that there's a kind of a feeling of a democratic deficit from the very beginning, so that whole groups of people were not represented from the very beginning, and you were very lucky if you were able to. There was still this desire, like those women on the car park, that there were active people that really did want to get involved in the 60s, 50s, 60s and 70s, the post-war period. But gradually that was being eroded. Very good, very interesting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just wondering, what is your view on the health and safety standards in current playground? in kind of playgrounds, do you think that they take away something from the children that is really very valuable?
Yes, for sure. I mean that's evolution of our society, where all of us, we are always seeking more safety. We don't want to risk anything. So it's more than normal that we offer the same for our children. But for them, it's not a choice. We can do a choice, but they just have to take it and to, yeah, it produces a boredom. It's not interesting for them. So we are in a sort of yeah, we have a problem there.
Do you think it makes them more vulnerable when they grow up and they are used to this approach that they are being taken care of, and suddenly they are found without the mommy and the daddy looking after them, and they which is something that they are used to this level of protection? Do you think that it leaves them vulnerable when they grow up?
Yes, that's what also research has shown, that children have to learn step by step what they can do with their body. And if they don't have this possibility, they maybe as a young adults, you sometimes have male adults who do very crazy stuff, very, very dangerous stuff that really can kill them. So I think it's not responsible to not give the opportunity to children. I mean, we have the adventure playgrounds and all that stuff, but there is now, at least in Switzerland, I can't tell for everybody, there is a small return on that, because we understood that can't go on like this, because children, they are completely unable to judge what they are able to do, or they always have the parents behind who say, don't do that or don't do that, and they hesitate. And so now in the playground design, there is the try to have more risk. I mean, it's never what we have seen here. It's not nothing compared, but still, it's the knowledge is here that we have to stop that crazy evolution.
I think isn't it, I don't know about Switzerland, but here it is our class system. So if you go to St Anne's or any of the states in Nottingham, kids play a lot more freely than, say, the middle class kids, and it's that constant cushioning of the middle classes. And then I always remember being taken to adventure playgrounds and really enjoying it. And this was obviously years ago, but I don't know if the other countries suffer as much with the class system.
I think it's maybe not so strong in Switzerland, but I also saw this in the US, that children from low-income neighborhoods, they would play much more outside, and the others you would never see them outside. It was really very shocking to see that. My children were in that, they were 9 and 12 when we went there for this Carnegie show, and I was like desperate to see there are no children outside. Maybe they would sometimes be in the front garden or in the backyard and have a play equipment there, but it would be so sad. So in Switzerland, what we then see, that, for instance, the people in the better neighborhoods, they again play in the street because they have the play streets. So this is again a privilege of, I mean, middle class, that they have play streets in their neighborhood. And again, they play on the street. That was a very bad thing before. So this is again, even parents who are very have very high expectations and all, they would again think that it's a good thing. Maybe not all of them, but again, this is interesting that the street play is coming back as something. Yeah, and no, there are cars, but it's very reduced speed. And they can put some elements in the street to slow down, and they're allowed to play football and whatever. But these are very calm streets already. But you have cars in there. Okay.
I just have one question. How old do you think people are allowed to still keep playing?
Yeah, that's always a big question. But I think to for instance, to move your body, it's always also a sort of playing, and it's also pleasure. And what we saw in the Zurich exhibition, for instance, with these huge ropes, the adults really loved to swing on them because it was such a nice sensation. So sometimes we adults, we are a little bit scared or not so how do you say, comfortable. We are a little bit stressed. So, but I think that was also a thing, this idea of the 70s to liberate, that play would liberate people to come out of these closed behavior, or very I mean, like dancing is also a form of playing almost. Yeah, I think, yeah, it's important. I don't think that you can go back to this very for instance, role play or things like that children are very, they really dig into it and they completely forget. I don't think that we can forget what's around us, but we still have a nice sensation of moving and things like that. Thank you for your questions and inputs.
Thank you for everyone joining us. To be able to trace back some of the gems that has been shared here today, hopefully the recording of this event's recording will be available in the upcoming days. So do keep your eyes peeled on our socials and our website as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been quite an experimental one. We slowly
very experimental.
Kind of like came back here, and then also we had apologies for any technical difficulties we had as well. Thank you so much for bearing with us. So thank you. Have a lovely evening.